In three, two, one. What's going on, folks? Welcome to 34 Questions. I'm your host, 34, and tonight we have Toddy Baseball in the building. How you doing tonight, Toddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. It's a Tuesday, you know. It's always funky for me. I don't ever feel like it's enough for me to feel good, but I don't feel bad today. So
We're not close enough to Friday.
exactly.
Yeah, especially like the weird schedule at Burton right now.
Yeah.
Um,
The new test,
the block day, the weird Tuesday
yeah.
masquerading as a Thursday. Yeah,
Now I get kids who tell me like it feels like a Friday already. Like tomorrow is gonna feel like a Friday because they had
right.
that block.
Yeah, that is a disappointing thing to get to the end of the day and realize you still have 2 more days left.
I got you. And I was like, for you on the teacher side, do you feel like you prefer the block schedules or the everyday 7 periods?
I like variety.
Mm.
So I like the change. I spent a lot of time in retail, managing bookstores, and so I got really used to a variety of shifts during the week. You know, like some 7 to 4, some 11 to 8, some 3 to 12, and it gives you so much lifestyle flexibility having that kind of schedule that I miss it a ton.
I
It
hear
wouldn't be
it.
possible now that I have kids and with the current job that I have, but man, I miss it a lot.
For sure. That's totally something I didn't know about your experience, your past. I'm sure hopefully we could touch on it a little bit as we go through the interview.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
But for the folks out there and for yourself as well, if you're unfamiliar with the flow of the show, we typically do a quick warm up. And then after that, we'll jump into a couple icebreakers to cool things down. After the icebreaker, we'll turn to the Wheel of Fate, where we'll spin the wheel, whichever number it lands on. That's how the conversation will flow. And after all that, we'll head out to some closeout questions. Sound good to you?
Sounds perfect.
All right. Well, before we all do that, my very first question for you is, how have you been? Been doing well? You've been doing great? How you been lately?
I've been doing well. This has been a difficult year. I was on sabbatical last year, so I was home with my kids all year, and that was beautiful. It was really hard, but beautiful. Like, you know, one of those once in a lifetime opportunities. And coming back to work was both like wonderful because I love my job and I love like the energy of teenagers is there's really nothing like it. I've worked at places where a lot of the people I worked with kind of lived their lives like everything had already like exciting had already happened to them.
Mm.
And you know, like it was summer, so you go to your lake house, and it was winter, so you went skiing, and like every year was the same routines and the same trips um and like the same Bud Light and it was there's something kind of soul sucking about being around that all the time and just kind of thinking like is that it, is that all there is? And being around teenagers is the exact opposite of that. So coming back this year has been wonderful, but also incredibly difficult because it's the first time I've been away from my son because he was born in November of 2019. So he's a pandemic baby. And then we were home, you know, quarantine happened and we were home with him. And then Zoom school happened and I was home with him. And my wife, who is also a teacher at Burton, was on sabbatical that year, so that our daughter could start kindergarten. And then I was on sabbatical. So it was like sending him to preschool for the first time, being away from him for the first time, and then him getting sick for the first time. And he caught everything. He got RSV and was hospitalized with it. We got COVID. We got norovirus, so everybody's thrown up. And like I have missed over 20 days of work this year because of the illnesses in our family. So there's a long way of saying right now, after 2 months, knock on wood, of not being sick, I am great.
I got you. That's wild. And that's such a, like, I feel like there's so many ups and downs through the past couple of years for y'all.
It's been a roller coaster.
For sure. Hopefully it calms down a little bit and things can kind of.
Yeah. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, same here. I loved how you described what it's like working with teenagers, man, because I don't think I've ever been able to kind of formulate it when people ask me, like, why do you want to deal with kids all the time? Uh, uh,
Yeah, there's a small measure, at least a small measure of insanity to it.
hey, I think we're all a little insane.
For
But
sure.
what's it called? Yeah, the whole thing about you said it was soul sucking, right? I think I have a lot of friends who are kind of in that right now, where they don't feel like what they're doing is fulfilling, but it pays the bills, and they make better money than I do. But it does feel like like they look at me looking like I figured it out, and I'm looking at them like they figured it out. But I guess the grass is always just greener on the other side, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I have lots of friends in tech, and we have the same conversations. Like they're like, you seem to have it figured out. You have job security at this point. You have good health benefits, and you don't have to worry about a contract. Like your contract is solid. We're working on like a 2-year contract, and then the likelihood is I'm going to be unemployed for 6 months, looking for jobs constantly before I find another place in another contract. And that level of stress is something I can't wrap my head around. But then what I can wrap my head around is $250,000 a year for those 2 years of their contract, right? So,
Yeah.
there are trade-offs. Like life is all about trade-offs.
For sure. But yeah, well, thank you for letting me know how you're doing. I'm glad to hear things have been great this past couple months. Let's move on to the warm-up. And then my first question for you in the warm-up is, what would you like the audience to know about you? I know you mentioned a couple things, but if you're meeting strangers for the first time, what's something you just want them to know about you right off the bat?
Okay. I am happier today than I've ever been in my life. And yesterday I was happier that day than I'd ever been in my life previous to that. And my life is not easy. My days are long. The work, both at work and at home, never ends. But I have a family that I never thought I'd have, and that I always wanted. And at least once a day, both my kids crawl into my lap and want to just be close to me. And it's really hard to complain about anything in your life when you have that kind of like unconditional love. And so I love my job as a dad. I love my job as a husband, and I love my job as a teacher. And all those things kind of, build that I feel incredibly lucky, blessed, fortunate, and happy today.
That's what's up, man. Very heartwarming for sure. I was gonna ask you, did you always have this point of view with your life? Was it finding happiness every day, or more happiness every day, or was it something that just you kind of had to grow into? Was there, if you can speak on it, was there like some kind of turning point or a revelation?
I think I view my life as a series of stepping stones, and those stepping stones usually coincide with pretty big mistakes. And being bad at a job, or doing something that I'm not proud of, hurting somebody, being hurt, like the decisions you make in a relationship, for example, that end up leading to the demise of the relationship. And that you played a big part, even if you're not the one that made the decision at the end, you played a big part in that decision happening. And then like the fallout from that, I used to work for the Oakland A's, and I was terrible in that job. I was miserable in it. And I think I probably really left a bad impression on a lot of people there because of how bad I was at the job, and like how little interest I had in doing it well, because I wanted something different. And so like mistakes like that, they're stepping stones, there are, those affirmation kind of things about I don't lose, I learn. There's never a loss, there's a learning experience. That kind of is true. I mean, there's still losses, but you can learn from them, and even the pain you can learn from. And so I think about the time I was 30, I left the book industry, because that's the retail that I used to be in. I used to manage at a Borders, and so Borders Books and Music before they went out of business. And then I managed a couple of smaller independent stores, one in Lafayette, one in Oakland. And I messed up at that Oakland store. We opened a store in Malibu, and I moved down there, and I pretty much wanted to come back to Oakland. They're like, no, we have a job for you here in Malibu. And I was like, no, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And it kind of forced me out of the book world. And it was when there was a huge crossroads at that point, because I still, and this is like I was 31, right around there. And I still hadn't finished college. I had gone to community college, went to Oregon State, dropped out, and hadn't finished that. And I decided, okay, I got to stop with this, like these jobs that I love in the moment, but I know aren't going anywhere. And I need to figure out what the next step is going to be. And one of the things that has been in the back of my mind since I was a little kid is being a teacher, along with like being an astronaut and a Major League Baseball player and all the other things that fell away as I realized I had talent for those things. And one of the things I loved about books was when parents would bring in their kids and be like, he doesn't like reading, can you recommend anything? And that kid would turn into a repeat customer. And that was like incredibly fulfilling every time that happened.
Sure.
I thought, okay, well, maybe teaching. And so I went back to school. I finished my bachelor's, and then it was like immediately to the teaching credential program at USF, which is where I met my eventual wife, and then, found my way to Burton. So the turning point was right at that. I got to make a decision that is for the long term, not just for the short term. And I got to make a decision that is hard. Like, I got to go back and tackle that college thing, because that was a failure that had been on my mind for, like 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point when I started doing things that were hard, because I knew that was what would be fulfilling. Like you said, the work is fulfilling. And that made everything in my life a little more luminous.
That's crazy, man. I've had, I would say, a similar, experience. So my 20s, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but I've had 12, 13 jobs in like 10 years or 13 years. Did a lot of learning, losing and learning for sure. But yeah, similar thing. 30 kind of came into, to my life, and started really thinking about the stuff that mattered to me and how can I do that all the time, was like a big thing for me. Do you think 30 is kind of like that age where that happens to people, or maybe, from your experience? Yeah.
If you're very fortunate, yes. I think for a lot of people, there's no way that you can float through your 20s. Like, I come from a family that had like financial stability, and not just financial stability for themselves, but to support me as I floundered around and fucked things up. And not everybody has that, like I'm really fortunate in that regard. So yes and no. I think as long as you have some stability in your life, then yeah, 30 is a year kind of that, there's a mental reckoning that goes along with 30. Like, okay, I'm not kid anymore. But I still have a lot of like prime years left. It's time to do something with them.
Sure. No, I got you. And you're right. I feel like just because in my experience, it worked out that way for me. When I speak to younger people, especially on this podcast, and they're maybe 25, 27, I'm always like, oh yeah, just wait till you get to 30. And then things are just going to click. Things are going to, you're going to be pushed into a certain direction that really speaks more to your personality and more to your mission. At least that's what I hope. I'm very optimistic about folks. But it's good to hear that the other side too. I hate always just like being one track minded. And I always want to be open to other perspectives and different ways of thinking. But you're right. Some people don't have the right circumstances for those things to happen, especially like giving it like a deadline. Oh, at 30 you're supposed to be at this point in life.
Right.
Yeah.
And we get really caught up, especially, working with teenagers, that there's this kind of cloud hanging over teenagers that if you don't have your career track figured out by the time you leave high school, you're in deep trouble. And I try to tell them, like, that's not how it works. Like, yes, the earlier you figure things out, the better. That's more life that you get to live with it figured out. That's cool. But if you don't figure it out, like, that's what life is. Life is figuring stuff out. It's not just like, oh, I've got my plan and I'm executing my plan and I'm happy. Your plans are going to fall apart, whether it's your job plan or your family plan or your relationship plan. Like, those things are going to break somewhere along the way, and you're going to have to adjust and figure it out. And like, adjusting to those changes and becoming comfortable with uncertainty is a huge part of, I think, building that fortitude for happiness. I think a lot of my 20s was that, being comfortable with the uncertainty and being okay with the idea that I had failed at something and I could go back and try to unfail, I guess,
Yeah.
And that was college for me. Is I didn't know why I was there right after high school. I was there because everybody else was there. I was there because everybody said that's what you need to do after high school. And I wish there had been somebody that told me, you know what, if you don't know why you're going there, find something that you do know why you're going to do it. Because what I ended up doing is a bunch of different jobs, kind of like you, a bunch of different jobs. For me, it ended up being a bunch of different bookstores. But each of those was its own learning experience, and I found out I found out where the line was for me in, like, kind of all aspects of my life. What was I willing to put up with? What was I not willing to put up with? What was important to me? What did I value in other people? What did I want other people to look at me and value? And that was the growth. Borders, that bookstore was kind of my college experience. I met all these people that were very different than me, but all in the same place for all the same life circumstances. They liked the same things. Their choices brought them there, which is the opposite of high school, where you're only there because of your parents. Your parents, I mean, to be crude about it, you're in your high school because all your parents fucked at the same time in the same place. Like, that's it. And there's a lot of artificiality to that. That's why by the time they're seniors, our students are like, God, I'm sick of all these people. Get me out of here. There's nobody that I want to date here. I just need a bigger pool.
For sure. No, I had similar feelings, man, and I don't think I've come to peace just yet with my 20s, even though it was a wild adventure. I feel like there was a lot of mistakes, and I shouldn't say this, but I still feel this way, and that's why I'm working on a lot of time wasted, and I know that. I hope it comes into more focus as I get older, and I can finally look back and say it all meant something, it all connected, and it all worked out. And I'm not there just yet, but for anyone out there who might be feeling the same way, we all on this journey together. It was the same thing with college. I went because my folks wanted me to. Like, for me, it was like my parents gave up everything to move to this country for my education, and so how could I tell them I'm not going? Or like, you're sacrificing.
That is a level of pressure for sure. So I'm Filipino. I don't look it, but my grandpa came here, same thing, in the late 20s, early 30s, and so all my mom and all her siblings kind of felt that same pressure. Not necessarily for college, because for the first few kids, college was not on the table. That was money that they didn't have. But her younger brother, who was the baby of the family, like, that was the only thing he could do, was college. Like, you are going to college, you are getting a job, you're going to become executive level, you are going to succeed. And kind of, almost at the detriment of the rest of the family.
Sure, yeah.
in some ways. So yeah, I get that. That kind of pressure was not on me, but neither of my parents graduated from college. My dad was successful, my mom was successful, but neither went to college. And so when it got to the college thing, my sister did great, but my sister is also somebody who can navigate those things. Like she's 5 years older than me. When she went to school, she had a plan. You know, she got really good grades in high school. She did the school thing really well. She has an innate ability for that. She worked her butt off to get those good grades. And so when it came time for college, there were scholarships, there were, acceptance letters, and there were choices. And she was just really good at that stuff. I was not. I was very disorganized, mentally, emotionally, physically, like everything was just a mess. And I barely graduated high school. So the only college open to me was community college. And luckily, when I went there and flailed around and messed that up, it didn't cost a lot of money.
I got you. I am still, in my debt. I'm hoping for a little bit of forgiveness, hopefully coming up soon. And
I'm in your corner. I hope you get it. I still have student loans too, because I amassed the debt later. In my 30s, when I realized this is what I need to do. I'm still paying for that, and a lot. So, enough to have to consolidate loans, my student loans, and I'm paying through that. So there's no debt relief for me. But I sincerely hope it all gets canceled for y'all, everything, because I think our economy would take off. And I mean, just think about the burden lifted off of all those people's shoulders. That's got to happen.
Oh, I feel the monkey on my back all the time. And I mean, even if
it hurts.
there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's one of those things I can't believe until it happens, kind of thing.
Right. You cross your fingers and you hope for it, and you just keep paying those bills until hoping that one day somebody just says, "Okay, that's enough."
Yeah, I'm hoping. Let's move on to the second question of the warm-up, which is, how would you like to be honored? If there's some sort of act I could do to express the energy you possess, what's that act? What could I do for you?
The year the pandemic, so 2019, I finally did a GoFundMe for a Burton food pantry, and raised $3,000 or so for a Burton food pantry. And I had asked Bill Kappenhagen for it when he was principal. I talked to Sam Bass about it when he was principal, and it just never really got off the ground because there wasn't, I kept saying can we do this? How can we do this? And I finally just said, I'm doing it myself. And so I got this big chunk of money from mostly former Burton students. Oh. And that was really beautiful, huge donations from former students. And it was just incredibly humbling and life affirming. And we have this money, and I went out and I bought all this food, shelf stable stuff. I cleared out my big closet in my classroom, and I was like, this is the Burton food pantry from now on. And we publicized it, and I started having this trickle of kids. They would come in, they'd be like, is this where the food pantry is? And I was like, yes, come in. It's open lunch in fifth period, because I always have a fifth period prep. And it's open lunch in fifth period. Come in, grab a bag, take whatever you need. And so that was November, right around when my son was born. And then 3 months later, the pandemic hits, and all that food just sat there. And then it ended up in wellness, and it ended up getting distributed. We didn't end up wasting any of it, but it still, then I was on sabbatical the next year, or we on Zoom the next year, and then sabbatical the next year. So I come back this year and there's no food pantry. So I would love for Burton to have a food pantry, and that way that could honor me. That would be great. And if it didn't honor me, that'd be fine, as long as Burton had a food pantry that our students could access.
Yo, man, I'm very happy to hear you tell me that story, because I didn't know that was something that came from you and kind of, in the community. But, you had this idea, and it was working, and unfortunately lost momentum because of the pandemic. We had
like everything, right?
like everything. We did have a pantry, like Pace did. We had a room specifically for it. It had, we're able to access the food bank. So when we go there, we try to get like the dry stuff, and have them in their cans and whatnot. I think our challenge was that either like the kids we were reaching out to weren't the kids that really needed it. So they'd go in there being, I don't want to say picky, but they were looking for certain
Yeah.
things that are there and aren't there. And then also, it's a big challenge to get families to come and engage with us. So I think those two things, and also like the issue of keeping things, clean and hygienic, was also an issue. So we definitely took a step back. I think, I was one of those people where I felt like we were putting a lot of effort into it, but wasn't really seeing the effects. And until we figured out how to do it better, we had to take a step back. That being said, I'm down. I mean, I don't know how much capacity you have, but if it's something where like we can get the food, if you kind of want to hold like a closet again, because it seemed like,
that space in my room, I will full on. Yes, that would be great. It seemed to work because there was some privacy there. They were coming into my room because it was like, I'm anonymous. Most of the kids didn't know me. And okay, I go into this room and it's that closet, and I just grab stuff and go. And, once they see me a couple times and they realize I'm not going to get in their face, I'm not going to ask them questions, I'm not going to make them uncomfortable, it seemed to work. And so I had these repeat kids that were coming in and grabbing stuff once or twice a week. And it would be, I would love for that to pick back up. That would be amazing.
We're going to do it for sure. And I'm not going to promise anything, but like, I think you can tell by the work I do, I'm really passionate about this stuff. So we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Cool.
I'm glad I could answer this question real quick. All right. And then let's move on to our last question of the warm-up, which is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself?
I was ready for this one. It's a 2.
It's a 2? Why a 2?
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm a pretty introspective and reflective person, but there are things that I've discovered about myself just in recent years that I never knew were there. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I got freaked out about COVID, and not just because of what was going on in the news and, the number of people, the infections and people dying and all that, but it was personal for 2 reasons. Number one, I was overweight. I weighed in the 230 to 240 pound range. I'm 5'10". And one of the things, like there was that whole comorbidity thing. And okay, if I'm overweight and I get this, I am more likely to have a really, really bad time with it, potentially deadly time with it. And that's hard enough. When you have 2 little kids, it's terrifying. And I thought, I've lived with this for a long time, like 10 years of knowing that I needed to get my weight under control. And now I have this really huge reason why there are no more excuses. There's no more, oh, it's going to happen later. It'll happen eventually. It'll happen tomorrow. It's got to happen now, because I want to see my kids turn 30. I don't want my kids to talk about me in the past tense before they turn 10. And I changed the way I ate. I started walking on a treadmill every day, and eventually the walking turned into running. I lost 70 pounds. It was like a third of my body weight. And I never knew I had that in me. I had no clue that I could be a runner. And I used to play baseball in high school. I was a pretty athletic guy. I played sports all the time. But I've always hated running. Like running was always a punishment, for being late to practice or something like that. And so if I can turn into a regular long distance runner who loves it, I run 5 miles. I wake up at 4 a.m. every day to run 5 miles. And I love it. I can't get enough of it, really. Like on the weekends, I don't run because I've realized now that at 48 years old, my body breaks down when I'm running that much every day. I need to give it time off. But on Saturday and Sunday, I get irritable because I'm not running. That is something I had no idea I had the capacity for. And if that's true of just that one area of my life, I imagine all the other things that I might really love, but have no idea because I don't really know myself that well. I think our brains go on endlessly, right? Like our minds and our imaginations are infinite, and we only find their limits by living and having experiences. And while I'm 48 and my body has limits, there's so much more that could be out there. So I don't think I know much about myself at all.
I got you, man. And I hope to learn more about myself as I get older, as much as you have. And mad props and respect for your, I don't want to call it, like, I guess.
Oh, it's weight loss. Just go ahead. I mean, there is
weight loss journey.
Yeah, I don't want to fat shame anybody because, I lived that way and I had a happy life for a long time. I had kids. I bought a house, but what I was afraid of is it contributing to my death, my premature death, and leaving my kids. That's it. So it has nothing to do with like body shaming or anything like that. It was just for me in my life. It needed to be addressed because I was tired. I had headaches all the time. I was taking more Motrin than any human being should because I was constantly like dealing with headaches. And so it just had to happen for me.
No, I got you.
And thank you.
I don't know if I feel like we don't talk like this at our business place. So, I had a weight loss. That's true.
We're running from one place to another and always waiting for the bell to happen, and then we got to run somewhere else. So
very true. Very true.
It's nice to talk to you like this.
Likewise. I had my own weight loss journey as well. I was probably like 275 at my most, and this was back in high school. And at this time, I had 2 ACL surgeries, 2 meniscus surgeries.
That's so hard. Like I've had problems with my right knee since I was 11. So like that's a contributing factor, right? It's way harder to get out and work your body when you have that chronic pain.
For sure. And I think what flipped the switch for me, I went to college in Long Beach, so I was away from family, away from everybody, and the loneliness got to me. Like I spent all the time in the gym. Pretty much that was my way to kind of alleviate that loneliness. And then after that, I remember coming back and people were like, "Are you sick?" Like I don't know if you got those reactions as well, but
I did. Yeah, there were a few people.
It's like
somebody you've had on your podcast, Miss Savin, and she's like, "Yeah, I noticed. I didn't want to say anything because sometimes the reason people lose weight is that they're sick." I was like, "Yeah, I totally get that. Like, that's fine. You don't have to say anything. I understand, but no, I'm not sick."
No, for sure.
Thankfully.
And I know you're active. 4 a.m., 5 miles a day. That's the routine.
It's the only way to run in a way that doesn't affect my partner. We have 2 kids. If I ran at 6, she would be co-parenting in the morning at when she really should be asleep still. So that was another pandemic thing. It was like, yeah, we have all this time, but we're kind of stuck in the house. There's only so much we can do. If I'm going to do this, I need to do this at a time that it doesn't affect her and her parenting. It's got to be something I'm taking care of on my own. And so back then I would wake up at 5 to do it. But now that we have a commute, it's
I
4.
got you. And so you got beast mode every day. How are you with the food? I feel like I struggle with food all the time as far as eating. I still got those big boy tendencies that I like to call them, but are you pretty firm on that as well?
Ups and downs. I really like Oreos. And I'm a vegetarian, so that helps. And I've been vegetarian for like 20 years, so that helps a lot. But like right now I'm working really hard on counting my calories. And for like when Milo got sick in November and was in the hospital for 4 days, from there until about February, I stopped counting calories. I stopped really paying attention, and I gained like 10 pounds like over that time. And I was like, okay, I got to rein this back in. And so, like I said, it's a roller coaster. It's your motivation is not static. It's something you have to work at to maintain, to push that level of motivation. I also, in January, I hurt my hip somehow. And so I was like running through this hip pain and, trying to figure out what the limitations were. And, do I need to just stop running for a couple weeks? And so those things came together. Once it started feeling better, I was like, okay, I can run again. I need to really like rein in the eating, and make sure that I'm spacing out my food through the day. Like there's, the snacks are more healthy and, less chips and cookies and more carrots and hummus and, those little micro decisions that you make throughout the day that by the end of the day, if you don't make them, they add up to like another meal. And so it's constant. It's kind of a constant like lifestyle choice. And I'm good at it some days. Like right now I'm doing okay. And I was bad at it for like 3 months.
It's seasons for me, for sure. Seasons of like real motivation, real focus on it. And then I get, what's it called? I get content with where I'm at health wise. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can, have some wiggle room. And then a cycle. It happens every year for me. I'm glad to feel like I found like a happy medium of everything where I know when it's coming. Usually holidays, I'm like, F it. I'm going to splurge. And then January, February, summer though is definitely my time to like, I don't know what it is. You have a season that you always look forward to? I feel like for me it's summer.
I'm a spring guy. Gotcha. I've gotten to a point where I like all the seasons. When I was in high school, I loved summer. Like the hotter it was, the better. When I played baseball, like the hotter it was, the happier I was. Like those days, it's like, I grew up in Livermore where the summers can get up to like, it's averages, feels like it averages 100 for the whole summer. It's not that hot, but it feels that way. And so you'd walk out to play sports and you'd immediately be warm. Like you wouldn't have to do anything. You're already sweating. I loved that. So it used to be summer. Now I would say I like the renewal of spring. There's always that feeling you get sometime in February or March where you walk outside, it's a little warm out and you feel that breeze and you smell spring. And I dig that. I love that time of year.
That's what's up.
But at the same time, I appreciate different things about different parts of the year. So
I hear you. But there's just one that we kind of just like enjoy a little bit more.
Yeah. I like summer a lot because as a teacher, I have 2.5 months off. And now as a teacher who's a father, I get 2.5 months with my kids, which isn't always beautiful, but that's hard. Constant parenting is hard. But all the extra time I have with them is very precious. Eventually they're going to be teenagers and they're not going to want to talk to me. So I like it now.
I mean, they'll become teenagers and then they'll become adults who appreciate you even more, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope so. I hope they'll call me.
They're going to watch this video and I hope they hear that message and call you as soon as they see it.
Great idea. I will make sure that I have the link ready to go in the email.
For sure. All right, boss. Well, we made it to the icebreaker portion of the podcast. You got 2 choices. You'd rather do a this or that or a word association. Which way would you like?
Do word associations. Fine.
All right. Word association. So you're gonna see a little countdown. You got 34 seconds on the clock. Doesn't really mean anything. It just keeps things progressing. What's it called? If at the end of the 34 seconds, I will, follow up with a couple of your answers. All right.
Cool.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. People.
Love them.
Pain.
Unavoidable.
Art.
One of my reasons.
Crazy.
A too often used insult.
Idea.
Precious.
And missing.
All the people from before.
Gotcha. I wanted to touch on the first one, which was, I said people. You said love them. Why'd you say love them?
I think it's really easy with social media to develop misanthropy and to watch TV and view other people. I think it's become, watching people with cynicism is one of our favorite spectator sports. And I find that antithetical to my existence, and I don't like it.
I got you.
Even though I fall into the trap like everybody else, watching, I'm a basketball fan, and watching the Memphis Grizzlies right now, it is really easy to watch them, especially as a Warriors fan, and think, God, those guys, why don't they just shut up, And then I stop and I think, you have said some of the most ridiculous things to other human beings in your life, and a lot of them happened when you were 23, like John Morant is. So who the hell are you to talk? Let them be kids. And obviously, there's a point at which our immaturity crosses a line, and I think that's the case with Dylan Brooks injuring people. And it looks on purpose, but for the most part, I think it's really easy to pick out all the bad things that people do, and it's really easy to miss that we pick those things out because they're so infrequent. Really, when it comes to the whole of human behavior, there's a lot more beauty and love and kindness and caring and support and helping than there is that ugly behavior. And so I try to nurture that. People are good. If my faith is anywhere, it's in the goodness of other people. As was it Mr. Rogers said, if there's ever something wrong, look for the helpers. Right? I don't know if that was Mr. Rogers now that I think about it. Let's hope it was. But that's kind of the way I like to nurture that outlook, because all the best parts of my life have always been because of other people, mentors, my parents, my family, my grandpa, my dad, who, I had a bad relationship with as a kid, and then grew into kind of a beautiful, restructured and rehabilitated relationship as an adult. All that beauty came from people. So that's where that answer came from.
I got you, man. And that was beautiful, man.
Thanks.
So it's funny when you were bringing up watching people, especially shows and stuff. I'm a big consumer of TV shows. And
I am too. Yeah.
And I like to believe that, because of my personality, I don't view it with cynicism. I view it, I think I love it so much is because the same reason why I love talking to people is I just want these stories. I want to hear the background, the character growth, and all these different things. That being said, I totally forgot where I was going with it.
That's right. I do that all the time.
Yeah. Let me just follow through with what's been a show that's been hitting you different, like recently that sticks out?
God, I guess it's kind of cliche to say Ted Lasso, but like
Dude.
Ted Lasso is such a good show, I think it's because of that. He sees that humanity in everybody, and like is always trying to stay true to that. My relationships are my life. My world is the relationships that I have with other people and what I cultivate with other people. And so I really like that. There's so many moments in every show where I just like, God, that just nails the emotion of dealing with another human being,
Dude, yeah.
And wanting those interactions to be positive and fulfilling. So that one's really good. There's another one that I've been watching called Three Pines on Amazon Prime, and it's based on this a writer named Louise Penny, who writes Inspector Gamache mysteries. Like the series is all mysteries with this one character.
Love mysteries.
And they take place in Quebec. And so they're the through line through the only season. I think it got canceled after one season, so we're like right at the end of the only season that exists. But the through line is that all these missing Indigenous women and the Canadian residential schools that contributed to like tearing families apart and cultural genocide of Indigenous Canadian people. And that show is really is fascinating. It's informative. It's like centered around ideas of like generational trauma and trying to achieve that like generational healing and justice. And then it's also like this really good mystery in each show on top of that. So that one's been really good since we started watching it.
Three Pines.
I got you.
Definitely check that out. Ted Lasso, I tell people, is my spirit animal. Definitely want to bring that same energy for sure.
I love that show.
And have you seen what's it called, Shrinking yet?
We've seen, I think, 2 episodes of that. We will finish that. That is, we will go back.
Oh, it starts hitting hard for sure.
Yeah, it's good. We just got to the episode. Man, what is his patient? Is he a vet?
Yes.
Like veteran that like has anger issues, where he defends him and like protects him and then gets arrested for it. Yeah, there's like some heavy stuff there, and we only have so much time. Like our kids, we start bedtime at 6:30. It hopefully ends at 8, and then we have time for one show. If I'm waking up at 4, staying up late is really hard. So we have time for like one show a night during the week, and that's if everything goes smoothly with bedtime, which it hasn't for like 2 weeks. So we have to pick and choose.
Oh, for sure.
with the shows that we watch. We just finished Mandalorian season 3, so sometimes that's all we have, like that kind of brain candy, semi-mindless, nothing super serious is going on here show. Yeah. So that our brains can cope and then go to bed.
Yeah, I think I get that through YouTube videos, honestly. Like I watch a lot of reviews on TV shows or reviews on movies, and
cool.
if I don't have the time to watch the whole thing, I'll just watch those real quick. But no, I got you, man. And now that I know, well, I'll be definitely, just dropping Ted Lasso here and there when I see you in the hallways or something.
Love it. Yeah.
All right. Well, just a heads up, Toddy. We have about 10-ish minutes left in the podcast, man. I hope you've been having a good time.
Yeah, it was great
for me. Yeah, I appreciate it. But let's try to do, I think I almost want to hold off on the wheel for today and just jump into some of the closeout stuff, if that's cool with you.
Sure.
So this first one is actually an activity, and if you're comfortable, I would ask you to close your eyes for this one.
Okay.
All right. So eyes closed, you're imagining that you're in the forest, taking a journey, stroll solo, just by yourself. You end up in a place where there's just tall trees around you, and you feel like you need to get something off your chest, something you need to scream out. I have the prompt for you, which is, I am, I can, I will. So when you
So
think
I
of
have to fill in blanks after I am, I can.
correct,
I will.
correct.
Okay.
And then whenever you're ready, let me know, and we'll get you on there. Feel free to open your eyes and let it rip.
Wow, this is hard.
Take your time.
The first thing that comes to mind is regarding sleep. So I am tired. I can go to sleep on time every once in a while. I will go to sleep on time tomorrow night.
I got you. And if you ever have trouble sleeping, you're gonna have to play this back to yourself just to give you that extra affirmation.
Remind myself, I'm gonna write it down. Write it down
every day. Journal it.
There we go. Post-it note. Writing it down.
I am. I can. I will.
I'm tired. I am a career insomniac, so it's like this curse I inherited from my mother, who is an early bird and a late bird, so like a night owl. So she wakes up at like 5:30 or 6 every morning and goes to bed at 1 or 2, and that's fine, except when you have 2 little kids and a job that's across the 3rd busiest bridge on the planet.
I got you. I that's the first time I heard of that term, career insomniac.
I've had. I kind of referenced in the beginning of the podcast breakups, and the breakups that I've gone through. While they are also those stepping stones that you use to reach a better understanding of yourself, better understanding of what you want to be, within and outside of your relationships, and they definitely made sleeping hard. My mind doesn't turn off. So
yeah.
All right, I've got it written down.
Gotcha. Hopefully it helps.
Thank you. I hope so too.
All right, boss. This next question is going to be coming from my previous guest. So shout out to Gus. Gus's question for you is, what's something that made you smile today?
Oh, so many things. Do I have to stick with one?
Not at all. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. I'd love
4th
to hear.
period's goofiness. We're reading a not goofy and not happy book, Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, and it's about so the real school was called Dozier School for Boys in Florida, and they uncovered all these graves of kids that were killed there and just covered up. And Colson Whitehead found out about it and built this fictional Nickel Academy around it and wrote a novel about the atrocities that went on there. And so we're reading that, and part of what we're studying is the rule of law, and how the rule of law is kind of a revolutionary idea. And today we were looking at the World Justice Project and their rule of law index, which looks at how the rule of law is going in countries across, ranks 140 countries, and the United States is 26th. Denmark is number 1. Venezuela is last at number 140. And so we're talking about all this stuff is kind of a heavy subject, tyranny is growing, and authoritarianism is growing, and all these things like that. And the kids are asking really good questions, what came first, the dictator or the authoritarian, or the sentiment in the populace that demanded an authoritarian leader, like Bolsonaro in Brazil, or Duterte in the Philippines, or Donald Trump. And were people just ready for a leader like that, or did that leader create the sentiment to a certain degree? They're asking all these questions. And it just turned into a a lot of laughter and like shared joy around, like, yeah, this is crazy, but we're all here together and we're having fun and we're joking and we're dealing with a heavy subject. But since we all like being together, it's okay. So that made me smile. They made me smile. They made me laugh.
I got you.
My kids, picking up my daughter and her wanting to read this book that she's reading and like reading it wherever she goes and like trying to crawl into the car and get herself into her car seat, her booster seat without stopping reading. Like that's hilarious. You're looking at it like, that's not going to work. How did you make that work? My son telling me he's going to go out back. I'm like, you don't have shoes on. Like, you can't go out back. It's time for dinner. You need to come back and eat. And him standing at the door, like, well, what if I just put one foot out? And I'm like, I'm going to be upset if you go outside right now. And then he shuts the door and he looks at me and I'm like, thank you, Milo. And then he just comes running at me and jumps into my arms. How can you not smile at that? So there are lots of smiles to go around right now.
I got you, man. Thank you for sharing, man. That's some intimate moments with your kids. I was gonna say your daughter can read while driving, or like you're driving, and because I get like I feel like
she does get motion sickness sometimes, but right now, they have those Scholastic book fairs.
Oh yeah, I missed those.
we were like, God, we can't really spend money on these books right now, and my mom was like, I'll buy them. So my mom just bought all these books for her, and she came home with like, it was like 15 or 16 books that she got in the mail at school, and so she's been like reading those nonstop. And yeah, she wants to read them everywhere. We cannot get her attention to do anything. Like, Echo, it's dinner. Echo, it's dinner. My daughter's name is Echo, by the way. That's dope. Echo, it's like, it's time to brush your teeth. Echo, it's time to get into your pajamas. Like, we have to say it 5 or 6 times because she's just, entranced by the book she's holding. And sometimes it's frustrating, but as an English teacher, never really gets that frustrating.
No, for sure. That's wild. Thank you,
when
Grandma.
She goes down the stairs reading is kind of fraught with tension.
I got you. That's lifelong reader, it seems like,
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully.
All right. And my second to last question for you is, what would you like to ask the next guest that comes on to 34 Questions?
What animates you?
Ooh,
what in this world animates you and get your juices flowing, get you excited, get you ready to engage?
Yeah, man. I like answering this last one too, so I kind of gotta take a moment to think about it. I feel like my easy answer is like, I feed off other people's energy. You give me good energy, I'm definitely gonna get animated. But I think what it is when I think why I really love my job, and I don't know if I come off as animated at work, but it's this thing of like, one, I really want to just create better community, and that's like my goal. And what takes it over the top is when I feel like the people I'm doing it with or doing it for are willing to help build that as well, right? So for me, every like, I don't like missing work because I think it's very crucial to build community, to just be present and be there.
That showing up is a huge part of it,
for sure. So I feel, for me to be animated, like every day, I feel like I'm more comfortable to get even more animated. And I tell my boss, let me know if it ever gets too much, because I might just go all out here. But I think it really works, especially like the teenagers' energy that you're talking about. That's something that I think they are very open to. It's like, this guy's a character, and like they'll engage with me because they see me as a character, which
I think that's true. And I have to say, whenever I see you and you smile, like, your smile is always like 1,000-watt and genuine. Like, that's what it looks like. It looks like that is like a true smile, not I'm smiling at you because I have to smile at you. It's a smile of like genuine warmth and kindness and openness, and I've always appreciated that.
Right on, Toddy. I'm trying to catch myself, but yeah, man, it's someone's told me that before, and I have my insecurities with my smile. My teeth ain't straight, but people
Or are mine.
And it has. You're not the first person to tell me that, and it's still hard for me to take compliments or believe that, right? Like, because I thought everybody smiled. I thought everybody is open to do that. But you're right. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'll get more feedback as time goes on. But I appreciate you noticing that and like giving me props for it. It helps me out for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, I don't want to keep you too long, man. I know it's might be TV time if you get the chance, but
probably not.
Yeah, not tonight.
Probably it's going to be doing laundry and then going to bed.
I gotcha. So let me make this last question easy for you. 100, 200, 300 years from now, your descendants are watching this video. What would you like to tell them?
Man, I am sorry that we messed up this environment so much. And I hope that immediately upon this podcast ending, we figured out a way to stop consuming so much and start healing the planet so that your existence is not miserable.
Gotcha.
That's such a bummer to end on.
No. Hey, man, no worries.
I feel like it's really hard for me to go through so as much as I love people, individual people are, the beautiful part of my life. We as a species, we got work to do.
That's another story.
I look at, honestly, every time I see a roadkill, I think that's an animal whose habitat was taken away by us in our drive to have everything as convenient as possible for us. And if we are killing like that squirrel right there, that is like this one tiny little piece of the destruction we are sowing all over the planet, and it can't go on. Like we have to make major changes, or 300 years from now there won't be ancestors to watch this. And if there are, will the technology exist for them to watch this, or will they be living in the rubble of the empire? So
Gotcha.
I hope our innovation and our survival instinct combine to fix this shit.
Like I said in the beginning, I'm optimistic. As much as it kind of hurts.
I really try to be on this one. I really try to be. Yeah.
No, I got you.
Especially with kids. I read The Road. I've seen episodes of The Last of Us. I do not want to have to protect my kids from zombies or plagues or whatever.
Yeah, let's knock on wood for that one.
Yeah, all I can do is run. I can't fight. I can just pick my kids up and run, but eventually you run out of steam for that. So
yeah, I mean, I think you'll be able to figure it out if it ever came to that. You'll learn more about yourself. You'll figure out new skills and new opportunities.
You're right. Yeah, that is the way to look at it. Yes, I can survive the apocalypse.
Believe it, man. I want to thank you again for stopping by. This was awesome, man. And I want to just make sure, I will come to you, talk about the pantry for sure. That is definitely
Excellent.
something
I'm
big.
looking forward to that.
What's it called? Any last things you'd like to add before we head out of here?
Let's see. Something positive to
Wrap it up.
to wrap it up instead of the apocalypse talk. What is something positive? I'm really going to miss my students this year at the end. This has been a hard year. And we are coming up on, like, we have 6 weeks left, right?
Yeah.
I think we have 6 weeks left of this school year. And I feel this year, even with the difficult year, the same way I always feel with 6 weeks left, which is I'm going to miss these kids a ton. And so the teenagers are still beautiful, and their hope for the future and their potential for the future is still beautiful. And I'm really thankful for the job that I have, because I'm in such close proximity to that all the time. It's very life affirming.
No doubt, man. No doubt. I want to thank you again, Toddy, for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
For sure, man. If you know anybody else who'd be interested in something like this or find it, valuable, please send them my way, or let me know who I can reach out to.
You should definitely go back to Mr. Nielsen and get him to do it.
Really? Okay.
Yes, you should. I will badger him. We carpool together, so I will tell him tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Mr. Nielsen's a character too, even though
He's
it's from far away. Awesome. What's it called? I want to thank all the folks out there for tuning in. If you listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching this on YouTube, definitely appreciate your time as well. Please remember to reach out, reach forward. As always, much love, and we'll catch you guys next time on 34 Questions. Peace. And it kind of fades out from there, man.